Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really difficult topic, smoking. We all know the health risks are serious, that persistent cough, feeling short of breath, the long-term lung damage, and of course the cancer risk. It's a grim list.
It absolutely is.
But what about the millions of people who maybe they're not ready to quit right now, or perhaps they feel they can't, but they are worried about their health and, the cost too?
That's a really important group to think about. Quitting is obviously the best goal, health-wise, no question.
Right.
But the reality is, it's incredibly tough for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
You've got the ritual, the social side of it, and, nicotine addiction is powerful. Just stopping isn't simple.
Exactly. And that's why we've been looking into this product that's getting some buzz. It's called the Anti-Tar Third Generation Reusable Cigarette Filter.
Okay.
The idea is that it might be a better way to smoke, potentially offering some lung protection and maybe even saving people money.
Interesting angle.
So our mission in this deep dive is to figure out, how does this thing actually work? What are the potential upsides, the downsides, based on the info we've got?
Okay. Sounds good. Well, maybe we should start with the basics. Like, what exactly is the problem with cigarette smoke? What's doing the damage?
Good starting point. Yeah, we know there are literally thousands of chemicals in there, right? Over 7,000.
That's right.
But the main ones people talk about are tar, nicotine, and carbon monoxide. And the material we looked at really hones in on the tar.
It does.
So what is tar, and what does it actually do inside the lungs?
Well, tar is basically this sticky brown residue, like what you see building up in a pipe if someone smoked one. When you inhale cigarette smoke, that tar coats the lining of your lungs. And over time, it just builds up, accumulates. It can actually make the lung tissue darker and seriously impact how well they work.
That sounds pretty bad.
And it's directly linked to, all sorts of breathing problems and chronic diseases.
Right. So that brings us to this anti-tar filter then. What exactly is it? What's the main idea?
Okay, so it's described as this small, reusable filter. It's got 3 stages, apparently, and you just attach it to the end of your cigarette.
Okay.
The big claim, the main selling point, is that it can trap up to 90% of that tar and other harmful stuff, too, before you inhale it.
90%? That's a lot.
It is. And crucially, they also claim it does this without really changing the flavor or the taste or even the physical sensation of smoking.
That last bit seems really important because if it made smoking feel completely different, I can't see many people sticking with it.
Exactly. Usability is key for something like this.
So how does this 3-stage system supposedly work? How does it catch all that gunk?
It seems fairly logical, actually. The first stage is what they call a primary trap chamber.
Okay.
This is basically designed to catch the bigger bits of tar and any other sort of debris right at the start as you inhale, like a first line of defense for the larger particles.
Got it. So catch the big stuff first. What's stage 2?
Stage 2 uses a microfiltration layer. Think of it like a really, really fine mesh screen.
Ah, okay.
It's got tiny pores designed to trap the smaller toxins and chemical bits that got past the first stage. But importantly, it's also designed to let the air flow through pretty easily so it doesn't feel like you're struggling to draw on the cigarette.
Makes sense. And then there's a 3rd stage, a flow enhancer and final barrier. What's that about?
Right. That last stage seems to do 2 things. The flow enhancer part is probably about making sure the draw still feels smooth and natural to the smoker.
Right.
And the final barrier bit sounds crucial. It's there to stop any of the trapped tar or residue from flowing back up towards the smoker's mouth. Apparently, that can be a problem with some simpler, maybe cheaper filter types.
Ah, I see, like a non-return valve sort of idea.
Something like that. Yeah. And the info also says each filter is good for up to 3 cigarettes before you need to swap it out.
3 cigarettes per filter. Okay. So the theory is less tar, fewer toxins getting into the lungs. What are people actually reporting? In terms of real-world effects, keeping in mind these are user reports.
Yeah, that's an important caveat. But according to the information available, users have mentioned quite a few positive changes. Things like coughing less often, finding it easier to breathe, not having that morning phlegm issue anymore.
That smoker's cough thing?
Exactly. Some also report having more stamina, more energy day to day.
Interesting.
And there are even mentions of less smell on their fingers and clothes, and some people noticing their teeth look a bit cleaner, whiter over time.
Wow, those sound like pretty noticeable quality of life improvements. What's the thinking behind why these things happen? Is it just the tar reduction?
It seems mostly tied to cutting down significantly on the tar and probably the nicotine intake, too, to some extent. When you filter that stuff out, your lungs get a bit of a break, a chance to maybe start recovering a little. That could lead to better oxygen absorption, better overall lung function.
Which could explain the energy boost and better breathing.
Exactly. And the reports about sleeping better or feeling more active likely tie into that improved breathing as well.
Okay. And the source material also suggested this filter might even help people quit eventually, but without going cold turkey straight away. How would that work?
Well, the idea there seems to be that because the filter reduces nicotine along with the tar, you're gradually lowering the amount of nicotine your body gets used to.
Ah, like a slow taper.
Kind of. So, the theory is if you do decide to quit completely later on, the withdrawal symptoms might be less severe because your baseline nicotine level is already lower. It could potentially make that transition a bit smoother.
That's a fascinating idea, sort of easing yourself off it. Now, let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the health side, what about the cost savings mentioned? How does that fit in?
Right, the financial side. Well, smoking is expensive, obviously.
Huh.
A pack a day could easily run you, $150, maybe up to $300 a month, depending on where you live?
Yeah, easily. Sometimes more.
But the material also brings up these sort of hidden costs, things you don't always factor in directly.
Like what?
Like extra doctor visits for coughs or bronchitis, the cost of inhalers or other meds, maybe needing more frequent dental cleanings for stains.
Sure.
Even things like buying air purifiers for your home, or maybe losing productivity if you're off sick more often with respiratory issues. It all adds up.
Yeah, those indirect costs can be surprisingly big. So how does using the anti-tar filter potentially save money then?
Well, there are a couple of angles to that argument. First, some users might find that because the draw is cleaner, maybe the cigarette lasts a bit longer, or they don't feel the urge to light up the next one quite as quickly, so potentially using fewer cigarettes.
Okay, that's one aspect.
Second, and probably more significantly, if using the filter leads to fewer smoking-related health problems, less coughing, fewer infections, then you might save on those doctor visits, medications, maybe even things like cough drops or teeth whitening treatments.
I see.
And the source points out that the cost of the filters themselves needing about 6 boxes for 3 months, they say, is presented as being much less than what you might spend on those ongoing health things.
So the idea is the upfront cost of the filters could be balanced out or even outweighed by savings elsewhere over time.
That seems to be the economic case they're making, yes.
Okay. And is this just a niche product or is it getting used widely?
The information suggests it's actually got quite a global reach. They mention millions of users across the U.S., Canada, Europe, Asia.
Really? Millions?
Yeah, which suggests there's a pretty significant number of smokers out there actively looking for and using this kind of thing. It's not just a tiny market.
Interesting. And what's a general vibe from these users? What feedback comes up most often?
The feedback highlighted seems generally positive. People often talk about feeling more in control of their smoking.
Control, okay.
And feeling less worried about, say, smoking around family, maybe because they feel it's reducing some of the harm or the smell.
Right.
For those trying to cut down, they report maybe experiencing fewer or less intense withdrawal symptoms. And a lot of people seem to appreciate the cleaner taste and the smoother draw they get with the filter.
Cleaner taste, smoother draw.
Okay. And you mentioned it's made of transparent plastic. Why is that detail important?
Good question. Well, first off, using food-grade transparent plastic probably gives users some confidence that the material itself is safe to put in their mouth.
Sure, makes sense.
But maybe the bigger thing is the transparency lets you see the tar building up inside the filter as you use it.
Oh, wow. You can actually see what it's catching.
Apparently so. And seeing that visible proof, that dark residue accumulating, could be quite impactful. Maybe even a motivator for people to keep using the filter or potentially think more seriously about cutting back further. Yeah, I can see how that visual feedback could be powerful. So it really sounds like this anti-tar filter is positioned as a tool, maybe, for people who smoke to potentially lessen some of the immediate harms without the pressure of quitting right away.
That sums it up pretty well, I think. It's being presented as a way to, quote, smoke smarter, offering those potential dual benefits. Maybe some lung protection by reducing tar, and possibly saving some money compared to the full costs of smoking.
So it's kind of like a bridge, a harm reduction tool for people who just aren't in a place to quit cold turkey right now.
That seems to be the core idea. It's not pitched as the solution. Instead of quitting is always framed as the best health outcome.
Right.
But it's offered as an approach of the harm reduction strategy
right.
for those still smoking, looking for ways to mitigate some of the risks.
Well, this has been a really insightful look at the anti-tar filter. Definitely gives you, the listener, a lot to think about. So here's something to mull over. Considering this potential for reducing harm, maybe saving some money, what are the bigger implications here, for these kinds of harm reduction technologies in general? How could they fit into public health efforts? And what does it mean for individuals if there are ways to potentially lessen the risks of habits they're finding hard to change? Definitely a question worth pondering on your own.